Today I'm going to show you how to make those banana cupcakes with brown butter frosting. I thank you to everyone that voted on Instagram and Facebook. I asked if you guys would prefer a video in cupcake form or cake form, and cupcakes won by a slim margin. So I am going to show you how to make the cupcakes today. So today's recipe is going to start a little bit backwards from how we usually do things. Today we're going to actually start with the frosting, and then we're going to start the cupcakes after. First, we're just going to start by browning this butter. Brown butter buttercream is like the most delicious thing I've ever tasted. It tastes like sort of like butterscotch, caramely, like rich, yum, delicious butter. So if butter's your favorite food like me, you're in for a treat. Okay, so we're just going to start by browning the butter here. I like to use a pan that's pretty wide. If the pan that's wider is going to be easier and make it quicker for your butter to brown. If you just have a normal pot, that's fine too. So you just start with, for this recipe, I'm just using 1 stick of butter. I always use salted butter. I'm just going to cut it into pieces so it browns a little bit quicker, and then put it into a pan over medium heat, and we're just going to let that come fully melt. So as you're waiting for this to fully melt, you can just give the pan like a little bit of a swirl. Your butter is going to go through some phases before it browns, so I'll walk you through those. The first stage that you're going to see it go through, this is almost fully melted, it's going to start getting foamy, and you'll see some sizzling around the edges. You're just going to keep letting it go, just keep swirling it. You can stir it constantly too. You'll start to see this nice foam. Just keep going. So you'll see now it's starting to get really foamy and bubbly, and that's what you want. You're just going to keep going. The bubbles will eventually subside, and you'll see that like the milk solids sink to the bottom, and that's what's going to brown up and get all nice and toasty. You can stir it too at this point because it's sort of hard to see what color is, underneath the foam, just to make sure you're not going too far. So let it keep sizzling. It's going to start smelling nutty and like a rich, nice butter. So we're getting there, but no brown bits yet. So keep going a couple minutes. All right, you can start seeing that it's browning. It looks like caramelish. I'm just gonna go a tiny bit longer. It quickly burns from when it gets brown to over brown, so keep an eye on it, but we're almost there. So I like to have a glass bowl handy right next to me, so as soon as it's ready, I'll just put it in the bowl, and that'll help it cool down quicker, stop the cooking process. And then once we're done with that, we're just gonna set this in the refrigerator and let it harden for 2 to 3 hours before we make the frosting. So that's why I like to start with this step before even baking the cupcakes. Okay, so that looks really nice and toasty and brown, so we're ready to take it off. And I'm just gonna pour it into our glass bowl. And a lot of the bits get stuck at the bottom of the pan, so you just want to make sure you use a spatula and get out every little speck of that. So I'm going to let it cool at room temperature for a half hour or so, because I never like to put anything piping hot in the refrigerator. So we'll let it cool a little bit, and then we'll stick it in the fridge. If you want to see the bottom too, you can see like all the nice brown bits at the bottom there. Okay, so it's been about 20-30 minutes. It's cool enough to go into the fridge. So I'm just gonna cover the bowl with plastic wrap, and then refrigerate it again, like I said, 2 to 3 hours until it's firm. And then we'll get going on the frosting and cupcakes. This brown butter has been chilling in the refrigerator for about, 2 or 3 hours. And I'm gonna start on the cupcake part, but I'm just gonna pull this out of the fridge and let it be at room temperature while we get the cupcakes going, so that it's not like freezing cold when we mix it. So just set that aside. All right, so I got out all of our ingredients that we're gonna need for the cupcakes. This recipe is sort of odd. It makes, well, I've been trying to half recipes because it's just the 2 of us right now. And so this recipe that I'm gonna show you makes 8 cupcakes, but it's easily doubled for 16. So what I have here is a fourth a cup or half a stick of butter, 57 grams. I have an egg that I separated from whites and yolks. I have a half a cup or about 1.5 medium mashed bananas. Here I have 1 cup of flour. We have 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. This is a little odd, but I have 1/4 plus 1/8 cup or 75 grams of sugar, and then 1/8 cup of brown sugar. And then this little guy, I have 30 mils or 2 tablespoons of milk mixed with 1/4 teaspoon plus 1/8 teaspoon of lemon juice. You can use whatever milk you want. I have almond milk in here. All right, let's get assembling. First step we're gonna do is we're gonna whip up our egg whites. I decided to do that for this recipe because, whoa, that's already on. Because I really love the taste of my banana bread, but I want cupcakes to be lighter and fluffier, not as dense. And so this way what we're gonna do is we're gonna whip up the egg whites, make them nice and fluffy, and then we're gonna fold it into the batter, and so that'll help give that batter some nice lightness. So I'm just gonna go ahead and whisk that up here until it's in stiff peaks. Alright, so you'll know it's stiff peaks if you lift it up and it stays, it doesn't fold over and a little bit sticks into the whisk here. So that looks good. And then we're just gonna set this part aside until we need it later. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and start with our other ingredients. So I have the softened butter in the big bowl here. And to that, I'm just gonna add our sugars. And we're gonna give that a good whisk until it's nice and soft and fluffy. So now that that's all incorporated, we're gonna go ahead and add our egg yolk. Mine broke when I put it in here, that's why I'm using a spatula. And then we're gonna also add our fake buttermilk mixture, so our milk and lemon juice. And then we're just gonna go ahead and beat that until it's all combined. We're gonna add in our dry ingredients. I have flour, baking soda, and baking powder here. I started with salted butter. If you're using unsalted butter, then I would add 1/8 teaspoon of salt into this, but we're gonna omit that. Dry in, mix that till it's incorporated. And we're gonna go ahead and add our mashed banana. And I'm just gonna mix that in with the spatula, and then we'll see how far I can get. If I need to mix it a tiny bit, I will. You just don't wanna overmix. But you do wanna get this really well combined so that it'll be easy to fold in your egg whites. You don't want it too stiff. All mixed in. And then very gently, we're gonna fold in our egg white. You don't wanna mix it too vigorously because you don't wanna knock the air that you got into your egg whites. You don't wanna knock it out. So we'll add all that in there and then just sort of fold it through gently until you don't see too many big lumps of egg white. Alright, so that's basically done. Don't want to overdo it. And now we'll get into our cupcake mold. So I have a standard cupcake pan lined here with 8 liners, and I just sprayed them gently with nonstick cooking spray. So I'm just going to use a cookie scoop to put it in here. That way you know you're getting the same amount of batter into each cupcake. You can always add what we have left to that at the end. We'll see how well I do. And I'm just going to scrape through what we have in the bowl. Then this is my husband's favorite part. This is when I bang the pan against the counter. I put little hot pads on, but I don't like that, it doesn't work. So you just bang it against the counter. So what we're gonna do is bake these at 375 degrees for 17 to 20 minutes. So I just took the cupcakes out of the oven 5 minutes ago and let them sit in the pan. I probably could have gotten away with getting 9 cupcakes. These are a little bit big, but that's okay. So I'm just gonna take them out and put them on this wire rack to cool completely. And then while they're cooling, we'll work on the frosting. For the frosting, we are ready to go now that the cupcakes are cooling. So I'm just gonna take that off. And what we're gonna do is just whip this best we can until it's light and fluffy. It's gonna be cold, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, and all those beautiful brown bits get stuck at the bottom of the bowl, so just make sure that you really go deep in there to get it all out. Alright, so then what we're going to do is add 1/2 cup of powdered sugar, so about 60 grams. And then we're going to add half of our liquid too. 1/2 cup of powdered sugar, about 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. That's good. And then about a tablespoon and a half of milk. And then we're going to go ahead and mix that up until it's nice and all combined. A little bit creamy, fluffy. And then I'm going to add the other 1/2 cup of powdered sugar, another 60 grams or so. And then we'll just mix that up. I'm not going to add any more milk yet. We'll see if it needs more after we mix it up. And I think that's a good consistency, so I'm just gonna keep mixing it for a couple of minutes until it gets really nice and light and fluffy, and then I'll taste it and see if we need to adjust anything. So after we mix it up, it should be really nice and light and fluffy. Nice and airy. So I'm just gonna put it in a piping bag. I almost tripped over the dog. So my favorite tip to pipe on cupcakes with is a 1M. So I put a 1M tip here in this bag. Just makes a nice swirl. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the frosting. And then this frosting is pretty sweet. Even just so we added 1 cup of sugar, I don't know why. I find that with the brown butter it just tastes more sweet. So I'm just gonna go put a little bit on. I'm not gonna go crazy like I usually do. Alright, so now we're just gonna pipe it on our cooled cupcakes. I like to start in the middle. You can do whatever you'd like. I think we'll have the perfect amount. Okay. Alright, time to dig in. Light and fluffy. So that's it. That's our recipe for banana cupcakes with brown butter frosting. So since the buttercream has a lot of milk in it and not that much sugar, I would recommend storing these in the refrigerator. So you can put them in an airtight container, stick them in the fridge for probably up to 4 or 5 days. If you want to store them longer, you can even stick them in the freezer. So that's it. These are our beautiful cupcakes, banana cupcakes with brown butter frosting. Thank you.